Hello there, one and all, and welcome to episode 6 of our masterclass series here on YouTube with me, Persolaise, and Remi Pulverail joining us again from France. He is, of course, one of the creative forces behind Les Indemodables. And I should say, if this is the first episode of the masterclass series you're watching, that this is an opportunity for us to delve a little bit deeper into certain aspects of the industry than we normally do in the Love at First Scent videos. And in the last few episodes, we've been focusing specifically on ingredients. And so the way that it works is that Remi has created for his brand, for Les Indemodables, this Grand Cru ingredients box, which is available to purchase. You should be able to find links in the video description below. And for each of the existing perfumes, he's done a pair of ingredients that are particularly important to that perfume. And we've covered a few of them so far. And today we're going to be looking specifically at Tonka bean and benzoin, which are key to Musc de Sable. But before we talk about those, I should say congratulations to you, Remi, because you announced the news on your Instagram just the other day that there is a new Les Indemodables perfume.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining again. It was a long and tough work to work this last one.
I should let you say the name. What's the name of your new baby?
It's a patchouli noisette. Noisette is hazelnut in English. And really the idea was to say because there are not so many patchouli really perfumes centered solely or mainly around patchouli on the market.
No.
So we really Antoine really used it in more than overdose, and the idea was
going to ask you about that because this is another creation by Antoine Lee, and if possible, I would like to get him and you and Valerie, your wife, to maybe do an episode where we specifically focus on patchouli noisette. But just tell us, because you told me before, what's the dosage of the patchouli in the perfume?
35%.
Which is pretty high, isn't it? I think a lot of people watching now are going to be thinking they really, really want to try it.
Yeah, it has never been done before at such a high dosage. And also we create a unique ingredient, which is the hazelnut ultrasound, using the best quality of hazelnut in the world, which is coming from Italy and the Piedmont region. This is the first time ever that a perfumer can use a natural hazelnut extract. Before, all the hazelnut accords in perfumes, in fragrances, were synthetic. So this is the time that
Remi, we'll have to make a special sort of segment to talk about that, because I can see we're going to get excited. And if you have taken any of the hazelnuts away from the production of Nutella, I am not going to be very, very happy with you. But we should talk about benzoin and Tonka. And one of the things also we will not be discussing today is whether we're supposed to say benzoin or benzoin, because I know that in English people pronounce it slightly different, but never mind, we'll say it anyway we like today. And if you are watching live, folks, I know you always have lots and lots of questions for Remi, so please start posting them in the chat now, and I will keep an eye on the live chat and start highlighting some of the ones that we can put to Remi. I thought today maybe we would start with the benzoin. No particular reason. We could have started with the Tonka, but both of the ones that we're looking at today seem to have particularly complex, interesting supply chains and growth stories. I know we've talked about interesting supply chains in the previous episodes, and some of the supply chains are more complicated than others. But the benzoin one seems particularly complicated. And in the information that you sent me beforehand, you mentioned that most of the stuff is grown in Indonesia, but you particularly wanted to focus on the production in Laos.
Yeah.
And now, why was that? Why did you particularly want to focus? Is it because the quality is better there, or?
Yeah. So Laos is a much smaller supply chain. It's 100 tons compared to 1,000 tons or so in Indonesia. It's a different. Alors, the perfumers use the two grades because the smell is slightly different. The benzoin from Laos, first is more qualitative. It's more vanilla and more sweet than the Indonesian one. The Indonesian one is more spicy and animalic.
Okay.
Alors, the problem with the Indonesian grade is that for many, many years, the first usage is not perfumery, and there is not a very good control over supply chain. And basically, this is a mix of different things which are still natural, but it's not really clearly identified the authentic
Yes,
gums.
you said that in your notes, that essentially the benzoin that comes from Indonesia actually is a kind of blend.
Yeah.
But you said that we don't really know what's in it. I mean, like what kind of other stuff? What sort of other things could it be?
Alors, first, there is not a clear identification of the botanical species, because in Indonesia, in this part of Sumatra, close to the Toba Lake, in the northern part of the island, the people are not really expert and focused. So it's a blend between different gums and tree species. It's not really clear because they didn't conduct an agricultural study to really identify the right trees, and it's not cultivated, it's wild most of the time, and therefore it's really complicated to identify and to segregate this the botanical species of benzoin. So yes, all the perfumers use a kind of blend which is not very, very qualitative. In Laos, the job has been done by a guy, because basically it's a French guy who is managing the full supply chain for more than 40 years now.
For the whole supply, one person?
Yes, alors one person. In Laos, yes, a guy who dedicated his full life to benzoin. It's very simple. Alors, it dates back to the French colony, the benzoin in Laos. The trees are clearly identified, were growing in Laos wild, but it has been cultivated for tens of years. And for over the last 40 years, thanks to Agroforex and Francis Chagnot, who is the guy who is really managing the supply chain, he really did this because he's an agronomist, and he's someone who worked, for instance, for the international organization, food organization. So there was really a technical study and a scientific approach to the supply chain, which enables now to have a very pure and very qualitative quality of gums, which is identified, and which is the benzoin, the styrax, yes, from
the styrax tree.
Yes, and also there is a very precise sorting of the gums. There are 5 grades of gums, which are more or less oxidized, giving different qualities. So you see the supply chain from the cultivation, because now it's a cultivated tree, until the sorting and the export of the gums. Everything is really well managed, thanks to this one-man show. Fortunately, he has a son, so it's a relief, I can tell you, for the perfumers, because the other players are the Chinese traders, because they are importing, and it's a bit less transparent, I would say. They are importing a lot of quantities to China for other usage that might be medicinal or aromatherapy or whatever. And it's a bit a fight between the two players, because the French guy, is really trying to support for now more than 40 years the villages. He did a lot of for them in terms of schools. He built some schools.
So I want to come to that, because that was all fascinating in the information you gave me. But let's kind of focus on Laos. You said that there's almost like a kind of 3-year cycle in a way with the growing of the trees, and that also the people there plant them with a particular variety of rice, which doesn't need to be flooded, and they also plant them with a ginger. Now, why do they do that? What benefits from the?
You see, it's really well thought, because basically it takes 7 years from the time you plant the seeds of the benzoin tree until you start harvesting it. So during these 7 years, as the tree is growing quite slowly, and the sun and the light, especially the first years, can go into the fields, they have decided to implement some other crops like the rice or like the ginger, to really accompany, to move along with the growth of the tree, and to use the shelter sometimes of the leaves. But of course, when the tree becomes big, you cannot anymore grow rice or the ginger, but it provides revenues to the people until the year 7, where they can get revenues from the resin. So you see, it's really a well thought agricultural system.
So they kind of keep this cycle going of, in some places the trees are young and so they've got the rice and the ginger, and in other places the trees are a bit older.
Yes, the first year the tree is very small, they can put the rice for the 2 or 3 first years, then the ginger, because there is a little bit of a shelter from the branches and the leaves, and this is the second crop. So they make this kind of alternate crop on the same soil where the benzoin is growing. So this is exactly in the same field and on the same place, but this is a different crops that are growing during the first 7 years when the benzoin is growing.
So all of that sounds great, and it sounds as though, you know, it's been very well thought out. And I think in the information you sent me beforehand, you kind of indicated that in terms of the climate there is no problem, in terms of the crop there is no problem, in terms of, you know, the fact that it can generate some kind of an income, there's no problem because it's a product that people need. But the problem, if we can call it that, is a kind of social one, in that there are a lot of people, especially young men, who are leaving the rural areas, are going into the urban areas. And so you said that there isn't the labor there to harvest the product. So if it is profitable and if it can earn them an income, why aren't they doing it? Is there some other reason why they want to leave the rural areas?
You see, Darius, here we touch a problem which is a global one, especially in the fast developing countries like Indonesia. I know very well Indonesia, and there is exactly the same problem. And you have it in China, you have it in many Asian countries. The young generation does not want to have such a tough work as the parents had, growing this crop. And you see, because the agricultural task and the work is very hard, and of course, and also I think the parents, you see, they push their children. For them, the success is really when they can take them to school, pay them the school, and then make some studies, even in the university, or at least this is for them, this is a proof of success. And they also push their children to become a doctor or to become someone.
So the aspirations are completely different then, aren't they?
Yes. And you see, with the phone and the cellular phone, and the young are really attracted by the big cities, like everywhere in many countries. And it's not very sexy to be a farmer. You see, nowadays in many of these might it be South America or Asia, unfortunately there is a desertification of many remote places, because you need to know that the benzoin is really cultivated in the north of Laos, close to the Birmania and China area, where there used to be the poppy. It was what we call the gold triangle, where there was the cultivation for many years of poppy, that has now been more or less eradicated, because it was a very dangerous places where no one could go. It was under control. Myself, I've been there.
I don't know if we've lost you, Remi. Okay, I think you're back. I think we lost you for a few seconds there.
Sorry. No, I was saying, yes, the cultivation of benzoin is in the north part of Laos, close to the Birmanie and the China border. It was the poppy.
But this raises an interesting question, which has kind of been in the background of quite a few of these episodes we've done, you know, the 5 previous episodes, because a few minutes ago you said, unfortunately, they're leaving the farms and they're going to the city. Well, it's not unfortunate for them, is it? Who is it unfortunate for?
No, I think it's unfortunate for the tradition of these villages. I have visited these very remote villages, and it's amazing to see the social connection and the traditional way of living. And you see, there is a total different spirit, and it's not. The people are not isolated when they will go in the big cities and become suburbans. You see, living in the suburbs and being alone because there is no more family, no more nothing, and you have to fight for
I think we're struggling with a little bit of a weak connection today, Remi, because you went again. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, I hear you perfectly well.
Or I know you keep breaking up from this side here. I don't know whether you're breaking up for the other people. Maybe somebody in the chat could say whether they're losing Remi as well. So I get what you're saying, but there is a problem here, isn't it? Because it's almost like we're saying that we would like people in certain countries to kind of have a lifestyle that we consider to be correct, or do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I fully understand, Darius. But you see where these people end. These people that are living the remote places are ending in the suburb of huge city. Might it be Jakarta or Vientiane in Laos is smaller, but might it be Bangkok? Might it be this huge city? And they become lost because it's very difficult to make a living. Sometimes they don't have the money to pay the university. And you see, most of the time, it's not a big success when people quit like that their villages. Now, having said that, of course, it can be an aspiration. But I mean, the problem is if these traditional communities and villages totally disappear, because who is going to grow? You see, you cannot imagine a country where you have all the population gathered in 5 or 10% of the total area.
No, that is true. So to go back to your experience of the country and to go back to the experience of the French, but we should say his name. What is the name of that French person you mentioned?
Francis Chagnot.
Okay. So are you seeing already that the villages are disappearing, and is this having a direct impact on the crop of benzoin?
No, because he did an incredible work over the last 40 years. But what is sure is that there is a big threat because, as I said, there are some other forces that try to control the supply chain. And these people are just traders, and they really don't care about, for instance, making, we were talking about that for the supply chain, but you see, placing some contract, providing some long-term commitments to really buy the products. The traders, they come, they buy, or next year maybe they will not come, and it cannot be a sustainable supply chain. So the way the guy is working is totally unique, and the other players will turn it into a normal supply chain where you can imagine, Darius, that it's a 7-year investment to start harvesting, growing and harvesting benzoin. So you need to think it twice, because if you are not sure to sell, if you are not sure about the price, about the potential market, you will never start to grow this kind of crop if you need to wait 7 years and not being sure to sell it. So today, this person with his company is really supporting the communities on the long run, which is not at all the case of the other players, which are just coming and buy if there is something and then they leave. And you see, so it's not sustainable this way.
Do you know much about his story, about how he ended up there and how he got into that work? I mean, he sounds like a fascinating character.
Yeah. It's quite impressive because the people are really making a living. Myself, I used to be involved in a program to support the building of schools. We did build 3 schools over there for a few hundreds of students. And it was really for them the most important point to be able to, with a market, with roads, and so a kind of infrastructure. And yes, they were very, it's a traditional way of living, but the people really look healthy, happy, and at least not really, they didn't have the dream that everybody should go in the cities or to do something else or somewhere else. And they are, you see, it's I mean, that's really nice. And to see these people that are maintaining this kind of traditional way of life, which is totally different from ours, but
no, I get what you're saying. We should do some smelling. And also, if you have some questions for Remi, please do start posting them in the chat. What you have sent me, you sent me a benzoin resinoid from Laos and also one from Sumatra. So I think maybe you can sort of, or maybe I should sort of tell you what difference. So I'm dipping this into the Sumatran one first. So Sumatra is here. And then on the other side, I will put the Laos one. Now, I'm guessing that even though you're saying the one from Laos is better, the Indonesian one and is also used in perfumery, isn't it?
Yes, of course. They are really different. You will see a olfactive profile.
Okay, so this is the Laos one. It makes me very, very hungry straight away, but it's
the Laos one?
And yeah, and then this is Sumatra. The Sumatra one feels a little bit more burnt.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Yeah, a bit more.
Maybe, maybe less delicate. The first one.
There is vanillin, and there is more than 2% of vanillin in the benzoin from Laos. So you have this vanilla smell.
No, I mean totally. If you had told me that I was smelling something with that was vanilla, because immediately I'm thinking of like a beautiful creme pâtissière, but like a really, really gorgeous one that is, because there's something about this which is very, very light and transparent and not at all heavy. And maybe it's because the sweetness also comes with a kind of woodiness, I don't know, that makes it a little bit qualitative. So what role does it play in Musc de Sable? Why did you particularly want to put it in there?
You can smell Musc de Sable, but you see it goes along with the powdery note of orris and with the almond note of tonka beans, and
which we'll talk about in a moment.
Yeah, you see, and if you spray it, you will see immediately this very sweet, very intimate perfume. And there is almost no top notes, and it's something like a wrap up, and it's a very cozy perfume. And you have
it also has almost like a kind of vintage quality to us now, I think. I don't mean the perfume. I mean the benzoin.
Yeah.
There's something very, very beautifully balsamic about it. And so is the future essentially okay for benzoin because of the work that your compatriot has done?
No, for sure not, because the forces to really to push people to migrate, and also the forces of traders and of people making business like in Indonesia. You see, this is why Indonesian supply chain is very untransparent, because basically this is traders and there is no stability, I would say, in the people who play and who use the products. And this is the main issue. And this is in Laos, unfortunately, like everywhere, there is always a danger because unfortunately we are living in a world where we see everything short term. Who is thinking 10 years or 20 years ahead today? Even our politicians. You see that when they think.
I think especially our politicians, not even. Go on.
But you see, so that's I think that's a bit the disease of our century is that it's difficult to really have this kind of long-term policy, especially for agriculture, because as we said before in our previous discussions, agriculture means and needs long-term view. Otherwise, it becomes a mess and many things will disappear because it's a long-term investment, agriculture, whatever the crops, and especially for benzoin. 7 years is huge before you get your first harvest.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And these aren't questions here, but I'd like to put these comments up because they're relevant. Kozizi, regular viewer, says, the recurring theme from you, Remi, throughout the series seems to be that quality oils and quality essences come from farming focused on the long term. You need to have that long-term investment, don't you?
Yes. Not only quality, by the way, availability, I would say.
Right. Okay. And Cloudy also says, I'm sure part of the problem is how badly farm work pays. Even relatively well-paid farm work is usually harder and less well-paid than many other jobs. I mean, that's something that you touched on as well, is that I guess maybe even understandably, there is this feeling of, if you can earn money by not doing physical labor, why should you do physical labor? I know that it's a problem as well in France with, for example, like pastry chefs. There are fewer and fewer people who want to be pastry chefs because it's hard work. You have to wake up at like 4 o'clock in the morning to,
Alors here, you see, it's not only a question of the amount that the buyers will pay. As we said previously, the main issue for me is really the commitment and the long-term commitment of buyers to make sure that they will commit to buy regularly the product. Because you see, there are a lot of initiative on fair trade. Today, it's very popular. You have fair trade everywhere, on every kind of supply chain. But it's not only the question to tell you, okay, Dariush, I will buy your benzoin 10 or 20% more than the market price. Okay, you will be very happy. But you will tell me, what about next year? What about, are you able to give me some ideas about the volume or the quantities that you will buy in the coming months or years? And if I tell you, no, Dariush, I have not a single clue. I don't know. Maybe next year I buy nothing. It's not possible. You see, this is really the main problem, I would say, even before the price.
No, the sustainability just is a huge issue, isn't there? Brilliant. Thank you so much for that. We should move to South America and talk a little bit about Tonka bean. Tonka is important in perfumery for all sorts of reasons, isn't it? But one of the kind of more interesting reasons is that it's a substance which is in Tonka beans, which we think was probably the first synthetic material ever used in perfumery, right? Although people don't seem to be able to agree whether it's coumarin or benzaldehyde. But anyway, let's talk about Tonka. Now, you specifically focused in the information you sent me beforehand on the Tonka that comes from Venezuela, from this huge basin in Venezuela. Although Tonka, which comes from the teak tree. I always forget that actually the tree that, is the tree that gives us teak wood. It doesn't just grow in Venezuela, does it? It also grows, I think, in Brazil and I believe in Guyana as well. So again, same question as I put to you with the other one a few minutes ago. Why particularly did you want to focus on Venezuela?
Oh, because that's a place that I have been visiting and that I know a bit better. I've been also on the Brazilian side in the Amazonian forest, but yes, I took the example of Venezuela because this is the quality we use also, by the way.
Right.
And I would say the supply chain overall looks the same. It's a feedstock that is sourced from the Amazonian forest. So here, compared to benzoin, you are maybe, I would say, a few weeks of travel, a few days or weeks. I will tell you just a little story, but I was maybe 10 years ago to the United Nations in New York, because you see they settled a kind of a forum every year for the indigenous people. And so I was there with different people from different countries of the world, by the way, which were representing the indigenous people. And one was coming from this place, the Amazonian forest, and was a tonka beans producer. And I told him, the guy next to me asked him how long it takes to come from the from his village, and he said, "Oh, I need to walk 2 days, and then there is 2 days of boat along the river, and then there is still 2 days to walk, and then I take a small plane to the main airport, and then I fly to New York." So it took him maybe 8 days. So you see that's exactly the context of this kind of supply chain. And Tonka bean is very interesting because it's a kind of migration of villages in the forest, in the wild forest, during the crop. So let's say between February or our spring, and they move, all the village move to the crop area because the fruits are falling directly from the trees, and they stay there for a couple of months to make this harvest.
Yeah, that's fascinating from that. So in this particular case, well, in one sense, getting it is difficult because they have to move. But in another sense, getting it is not difficult because it's either lying on the ground or they just pick it. But they have to have this nomadic lifestyle for a few months where they just go and they move. And you said that logistically it's difficult because they have to take food with them. They have to take everything. So, and have you seen one of these harvests?
Yeah. Of course. And so it's a full village that will move from their traditional place where there is the village built and to a nomadic way of life for 3 months' time, where they will need to take everything they need to eat and to make a living in the wild forest. And it's pretty unique. And that's also because the crops are very different in quantities every 3 years, so there is a kind of cycle. And it's crazy because you cannot imagine that there is such a population on the 21st century still living in the wild forest of Amazonia and harvesting this kind of incredible fruits.
What else? What else is?
I have no idea about the perfume and even the.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say, because I know that tonka bean is used to some extent in cooking, but what else is it used for? Because I almost feel terrible to think that there are these whole villages that have to move for 3 months at a time just so we can have some nice perfumes.
Yeah, but in the meantime, you see the interest of this supply chain, might it be benzoin or tonka beans, is that it provides to these communities monetary revenues. And monetary revenues means development, because when you grow rice, when you grow red ginger, you can exchange it or you eat it most of the time. But I mean, you cannot buy something, or it's not a monetary revenue. If you want to build a school, or if you want to develop a village, at some point you need some monetary revenues today in our world. So if you don't have any crop bringing some monetary revenues, development is impossible. So you see, it's a big chance to have this kind of few crops that are really used because it is export.
Well, I think you broke up a little bit for me there, but apparently you're not breaking up for anybody else, which I don't understand. I don't understand how the signal can be going for me, but not for anybody. But anyway, so okay, so again, to kind of reverse the question that I asked you a little while ago with the benzoin, are we seeing some of the villages and the places in Venezuela very definitely benefiting from this monetary revenue? Is there development taking place?
You see, in the programs in place, because you have also some NGO that are working over there, the deal with the communities is that they will be used to patrol the forest and avoid deforestation, because you see the main threat for these people is the deforestation, which is massive in the Amazonian forest, as you know, might it be in Brazil, Venezuela, everywhere. So basically, there is a deal to really pay the guys and these communities not only to harvest the tonka beans, but also patrol the forest and make sure that there is no hunters or people who will burn the forest, or you see all this kind of traffic that you can have in these kind of places. So there is an overall program which is really also trying to protect the wild forest, which is basically the source of revenues and the place where they live. So it's beneficial for all the parties, but it's again it's a very difficult war against.
No, sure, and it's fascinating how in the perfume world you're never very, very, very far away from criminal activity and illegal activity. It's an interesting thing. So anyway, so we're with this village, and they go for 3 months, and they get their tonka beans, and then what happens?
Alors then, the beans are dried and are stocked. So the storage is a big issue because of the humidity of the forest. So it can become molded. So you need to really transport the beans as soon as possible in a drier place, I would say, to make a safe storage. And then it is packed and exported. So, but this drying and storage step is very important for the quality of the beans. And it's interesting when you get the beans, the good quality beans, sometimes they are a bit crystallized, a bit like vanilla, by the way, because the coumarin, which is the main molecules from the tonka beans, is getting out of the beans, and it makes like crystal. And it's the same for vanilla. When you have a when you have a high vanillin beans, sometimes also it makes this kind of crystallization on the beans.
And it's a crystallization of what? What are the crystals that come on the vanilla?
This is the coumarin, which is
also coumarin. Okay.
Yes, because of the coumarin. Yeah.
Okay. Now, this is a good point to bring in this question from Gavin, actually, which is kind of related to, I mean, it is related to tonka, but it's also related to synthetics. Gavin says, Luca Turin said that tonka bean is crystalline and almost pure, so that there is little difference between the synthetic and the natural stuff. I wonder if he means coumarin. Do you consider that to be correct? Is there very little difference between synthetic coumarin, assuming he means coumarin, and natural coumarin?
No. Alors, yes. Of course, yes. Between synthetic and natural coumarin, yes. But we are not coumarin. What makes the beauty of tonka beans is the extract, the full extract that you make from the beans, which brings an olfactive profile which is much, much, much richer than coumarin alone. Of course, there is no interest to make natural coumarin or compared to synthetic coumarin. The interest is really the complexity of the natural extract from the full beans.
So that's a good point to do some smelling. So you've sent me a tonka alcolat from Venezuela and tonka bean resinoid, dosed at 30% from Venezuela. So we should just do you want to remind everybody what an alcolat is?
Alors yes, alcola is a very old extraction technique where basically you make the concrete, so it's a solvent extraction. Then you mix the concrete into alcohol and you do not evaporate the alcohol. So it enables to keep really the top notes, the more volatile molecules in the extract that you don't have in the absolute. And you will smell it, Dariush. It's very interesting because it does not exist tonka beans essential oil. So alcola, I would say, is a bit the volatility of the essential oil. So you see the resinoid will more be used in the dry down of the perfume, and the alcola is very volatile and will be used for the top notes of the perfume.
Yes, and the alcolat is a lot like the benzaldehyde that you sent. It's got that almond, marzipan, amaretto quality. I mean, it's really, really good.
Yeah, but it's not long lasting. You see, if you keep it after a few minutes, it's becoming very weak, which is not the case of the resinoid.
I mean, it's so appetizing. It's just as well that after we finish this broadcast, I'm going to be having some food because I'm just going back as well.
You can make pasta with the benzoin and tonka beans, or kind of dessert.
Yeah, I do have some. We always have some in the kitchen, you know, to kind of grate them on some patisserie or something. Oh, it's really, really amazing. But whereas, yeah, the resinoid is at this stage anyway, because it will develop, but it's much more serious. It's much more sophisticated. It's much more authoritative. It's much weightier. Now, you also sent me some natural benzaldehyde. So why did you want me to smell that?
Because it's used in the mousse des sables. Alors, natural benzaldehyde is isolated from the bitter almond.
So you weren't trying to kill me with cyanide. You didn't want to poison me.
No. No, please. Not you.
No, not this time. Anyway, tell us about the benzaldehyde then, because that smells fantastic as well.
Yeah. You are really in the Calisson, Darius, yourself, who you are spending a wonderful holiday sometimes in the south of France. Probably you did a stop in Aix-en-Provence.
Yeah, and we have to buy some Calisson when we go to Aix because my other half is a huge fan of Calisson. Yeah.
In the Roi René, because Roi René is really one of the best little factory of Calisson. They make the traditional recipe, and you have really this taste because part of my family from this region. So
okay,
I really it belongs to my childhood.
So this benzaldehyde, you say it's a natural one. Did I hear you say that this one has actually been extracted from almonds?
Yeah, bitter almond.
Okay.
And still, you see, Lucas Turin did the question before was interesting between natural coumarin and the synthetic coumarin. I can tell you that the difference, apart from the richness of the natural extract, which is the top level, but if we talk about isolated molecules, there is a difference, a significant difference between a natural benzaldehyde and a synthetic benzaldehyde, definitely. And there is a difference in terms of olfaction between a natural coumarin and a synthetic coumarin.
And what would that difference be?
It's you see the chemical steps that you use to make, for instance, the synthetic benzaldehyde or the synthetic coumarin is quite different from the extraction of the natural one, because when you extract the natural coumarin or benzaldehyde, you make an extraction which will be 99% point something pure, but you still have a few other molecules, even if there is if it's at a very low dosage, that will really enhance and improve the olfactive profile, and you can make the difference even for a non-specialist, a non-expert, very easily.
They'll add something. Okay. Now, this is a question we've had here from somebody calling themselves My Little Sample, and it may be a question that is too huge for us to consider now, but I'll put it to you anyway, because it's a very good question. And it is, how do we as consumers know if the brands that we are buying from are good to the people and the environment? And is that, in light of the conversation they're saying, if we see high prices for something, are those high prices justified? Because do the high prices indicate that the brand is good to the people and the environment?
Thank you, My Little Sample. It's a question from My Little Sample. It's a very good question, and this is why, I will come back very briefly to the Indemodables.
Yeah.
This was, you see, Darius, our spirit and our objective from the beginning. And that's why we are communicating on the expensive material we put in the formula in overdosage, which is a justification of the price, because for me it's essential. Today we can analyze with our machine all the formulas on the market, and I can tell you that even some perfumes selling over 200 euros have very, very, very poor ingredients inside. And for me, it's not acceptable. This is the first point. The second point, as regard the environment and the sustainability of a brand, as for us, we did a communication. You will see in the new leaflet of the collection. We have a very, very reduced carbon footprint, because all of our suppliers are 200 to 300 kilometers around our lab. Might it be for packaging, for the bottle, for everything. We, as much as we can, work with local people, even if it's more expensive, because as you can imagine, the French producers are not the cheaper, but we don't care because I think this is a commitment. We write it, we claim it, and for the other brands, I do not know, but there is very little communication, especially for the niche brands, about their environmental policy and, as you say, all these aspects which are a bit. I don't know, Dariusz, what you think, because you know much more the market than I know, as you study all the brands and you are evaluating all the brands. But for me, yes, this is something which is probably not enough disclosed, or if there is something to say or to the consumers.
Well, I think the problem is, and to go back to the question, there were two parts to the question. One was, how do we know? How are we supposed to know? And I think the only really, you don't
know, Dariusz.
No, exactly. How do you know? The answer is with a great deal of difficulty. I suppose one thing that you can do is to ask the question. But unfortunately, the poor sales assistants who are working in the shops, they're not going to have all of the answers. So, and they're not supposed to, I guess that's not their job. So one thing you could do is write directly to the brands and say, can you tell me where you get your material, and then they would say, oh, but we don't source the materials directly because we get them from Givaudan, we get them from IFF, and etc. So I think the answer to that question is it's very, very, very difficult to know. And if it's something that really, really worries you and concerns you, then the only thing I think you can do is maybe go to small brands, right? Maybe, and I know that, you obviously represent Les Indemodables, Remi, and that's a good example, but there are a few other brands like yours, not many, which deal directly with people, and so they can directly say where they know things are coming from. I mean, you're in a very unusual position because you also produce so many of your materials yourself.
But you see, Dariusz, there is another point, which is not only to have this traceability, but also the dosage that you use in a perfume, because you see, we are also retailers. You see, we are in a boutique, so we don't, Paris does not sell only Les Indemodables. But when you start asking questions about the dosage of the most precious ingredients, which are the naturals, there is nobody is disclosing anything because they don't know or they don't want to. So this also justifies the price, because when you have a rose oil that costs 15,000 euro a liter and that you really use it as a high percentage in the formula, it explains also why you pay a perfume 200 euros. But if you don't have any clue.
No. And that's the second part of the question. Our high prices we see justified. I mean, for me, the price thing is, it's an indicator only in one direction. If you go into a shop and you see a perfume that is really, really cheap, then you can be pretty sure that the formula is very, very cheap. But if you see a perfume that is really, really expensive, you have no clue whether the formula is expensive or not.
Then the other question linked to this one, but that's why also we choose really our retailers, and we try not to grow too fast, is that you need to be in the right place where you educate the people. You see, Dariusz, we spend a lot of time with the retailers to train them, because at the end of the day, the consumer, the guy who is going to buy his perfume, he needs to have in front of him or her someone who is able to explain, and maybe themselves to ask the question to the brand they are distributing, you see. So there is also responsibility and professionalism at the retailer's level, which is probably not sufficient, especially in the niche segment, where people are supposed to be more educated than in the mass market Sephora model, you see, which is not always the case.
But do you find, as a retailer and as a creator, do you find that there are more people coming to you and actually specifically saying, oh, what are you doing to help the communities in Laos? What are you doing to help the people in Haiti? Is that conversation happening more and more?
Always. And I think it's very good, because with the social network, with the work you do, Dariusz, and it's not to make a compliment, but this is the truth. I think the people are aware of more and more questions about perfume that nobody was questioning before. And we have all sorts of kind of questions. Might it be for the distribution, for what is in the formula, why did you use this kind of packaging? Is it recyclable? May I have some other training session because I want to know more about the ingredients, and I would like. That's why we welcome the people here, and we spend so much time with them here in front of the org to smell the ingredients and all that stuff. And I mean, this is these passionate people that are listening and following Persolaise or other people who are challenging us all the time, and it's really very, very interesting.
No, absolutely.
And it did not exist 10 years or 15 years ago.
No. I think you're absolutely right. And because we're running out of time, we should just bring things. Tonka Bean has taken us on an interesting journey. It's like we've gone away for 3 months and now we need to come back to the village. But so the usual sort of final question is the future of the Venezuelan Tonka safe as well? What's the balance like there?
No, not at all. You see, these are the weakest people you can find, Darius. Might it be in Laos or might it be in Venezuela? These traditional communities are very, very weak, and you can see it in Brazil with the breeding and with the power of the big companies, of the people who have money, is much higher than the voice of these people. So now they start to have some forum like the one I was talking about the indigenous community at the United Nations. But it's very, very weak. And yes, this is models that are definitely endangered for the years to come.
Okay, so a bit of a worrying, which is maybe why we need to finish on this note. This is a comment from Jen O, who says, this is a call to consumers to take some responsibility and what and how we consume, like asking the right questions, choosing who we support, for example, independent and artisanal, buying more local. As much as possible, because of course it's not always possible, or at least, you know, maybe not being completely black and white about it, but at least having an awareness and supporting things.
That's a very nice conclusion.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, Remi, again for your time. Thank you very much for talking us through it. Congratulations again on the launch of Patchouli Noisette. By the way, if anybody's wondering, I haven't smelt it. I don't have a secret sample hidden away here anywhere. I have no idea what it smells like. But I know that it's composed by Antoine Lee, so I'm sure it'll be worth trying. And I will put up details about our next masterclass soon, but we're thinking at the moment maybe it might be at the beginning of July. But until then, thank you once again, Remi. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and we will see you again soon.
Many thanks. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.